Welcome everyone to this session. If you're looking for the Grief for Two workshop, you are in the right place. I hope you've been enjoying the rest of your day so far. I heard there were some amazing sessions this morning. So first and foremost, I just want to say that this workshop is completely for you. So leave your videos on, please engage with us in the chat, leave any questions, comments. We are here for you. And I'll start with just a little introduction. My name is Danielle. I've been involved with YSC the past couple years. I first found YSC through the Tour de Pink West, and I've been riding the Tour de Pink with my mom every year, who is also a breast cancer survivor. And I was so moved by my experience, both with my mom and with YSC, that I decided to make breast cancer research my career, and I'm studying breast cancer epidemiology at Yale at the moment. So enough about me. Now to today's speaker. Julie Larson is a psychotherapist who has spent her career working in oncology supportive care. She has a vibrant private practice working primarily with individuals under the age of 40 impacted by an unexpected medical diagnosis. Julie is a frequent speaker and educator to both survivor and professional audiences on the impact of a serious illness at a young age and living fully after cancer diagnosis. So everyone, welcome Julie.
Hey there, everybody. It is so good to be here today. Danielle, thank you for that introduction and for joining me. I'm a little like feeling like that first screen that said speaker should have also included your name because I want to bring you, and frankly, I want to bring our entire group into this discussion. I am so glad we have a co-survivor group today because it is important. This is so important, and you are right along in this journey. And my guess is that there could be some survivors in our mix this morning too, which is great and fine. It's always nice to kind of take a peek in and look. But we're going to talk about some things. We don't have that long, so I kind of want to dig in. I do not want you in any way as a participant in this group to feel silenced. So your words and your experience and your thoughts as we get going here are so important to Danielle and I as part of our conversation this half an hour. Please do not hesitate to add into the chat, talk, share with us. If something that I say really resonates for you and you're like, yes, shout it out, put it in there. We're going to bounce to that chat. We're going to make this interactive. Danielle is going to come up and split screen with me as soon as I go through some slides here. My slides are really just grounding to you for this journey. A caregiving cancer experience is filled with complexity, right? There's probably depth of bonding and kind of a connection that happens for many. I think, Danielle, you talked about that. I hear in you that way that in many ways it introduced and opened up a perspective for your whole giant big life that changed, right? So I think that happens. I think it can also feel pretty complex and sometimes hard to navigate as a caregiver. And how do you do that? So let's just begin. So I'm going to share my screen, and the information that I'm going to share in these slides is just meant to kind of get us kind of thinking on the same page. Bring your thoughts into the chat. Again, your voice and your words are so important to me, to all of us. So these slides come from a place of sitting with many people over the years of my career. And what I hear a lot, and Danielle and I talked a little bit before we jumped into this, what I hear a lot from caregivers and co-survivors are some of these things on this list. So fears, kind of communication fears, saying the wrong thing. Like, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to tiptoe into a place that feels really fragile? And that's going to be difficult. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Behind that is a depth of caring and compassion, of wanting to be the appropriate caregiver, not wanting to hurt somebody, but not always knowing exactly what those words are going to be. Another fear that I hear a lot in my office, and share with me if this resonates, is becoming emotional. Like, what if I go there? What if I begin to say what I'm thinking or what's happening for me over here on this side of the experience? And I get really emotional, and I don't want to burden or further complicate the experience of this person that I love that's going through treatment. And yet, gosh, if I'm being really honest, I feel worry, I feel fear, I feel uncertainty, and I don't know where to talk about that. So becoming emotional, not having an adequate response. Like, what if this person that I care deeply for says something to me about their fear or about their uncertainty? Oh, I don't know what to say back. I don't know how to be comforting. I don't know how to be supportive. I don't know what words to use. Um, Historically difficult communication dynamics, right? So certainly I have sat in my office with people who have gone through the cancer experience with someone that they care about, but with whom they've have kind of a complicated relationship. And so how do I care for this person and be available to them when it's always kind of been a bit tricky? And then finally, kind of maybe in line with that point, is feeling unable to freely express your feelings. Like, if I do that, then this happens. I get shut down. Oh, don't feel that way. You don't need to feel that way. So then I can't express because then this thing happens next. Or if I express my feeling, then that person kind of feels really emotional and fragile. And then I feel lost and confused in that. So I think that kind of sometimes keeps us in what I sometimes call as a prison of silence. Like, I don't know where to take all of this. I don't know where to go. So some of those things happen, I hear in my office. I don't know if that's hitting for any of you. We're going to look at that chat in a second and we're going to come back to it. But if some of the things I'm talking about right now, you're nodding or you're like, oh yeah, feel free to add it in there. Feel free to go and share. If you're a survivor, you can, if you're not the caregiver, maybe your thoughts are in this too, open to sharing that too. One of the things I'm going to say, and we don't have a lot of time. So honestly, I'm giving you like speed therapy right now. This is speed therapy, but is to call one of the things I would encourage you to do as a caregiver, as a survivor, frankly, as a human, is to begin to cultivate a habit of noticing. What I mean by that is that we are running through our lives feeling so many different things. And often the loudest emotion is the one that we notice. And we're not as skilled at noticing all of the different things that are coming up for us as we live our lives. So, can you begin? It takes a little effort and a little bit of discipline to just cultivate this habit of noticing, like, how am I doing here? What's happening for me? What's showing up? And that might require you to build or begin to grow your feeling word vocabulary. In my office, I have what's called a feeling wheel, because as I ask people, as a therapist does, how does that make you feel? I hear the same words again and again. I feel overwhelmed. I feel scared. I feel uncertain. I feel sad. Well, there are so many feeling words. And if we can get even more detailed in that, I feel dread. I feel concern. I feel hesitant. I feel cautious. You know, if you would get even more like kind of detailed in that, then that gives us maybe a little bit more information about what we might do with that feeling or how we might respond to it. Um, Sometimes we don't even pay attention to what we're feeling. We just kind of keep acting, keep living in our lives. So again, this cultivative notice means naming it and claiming it. Like, I today woke up and I am filled with a feeling of uncertainty. Name it and claim it. Sometimes if we don't name it, it runs our day. And when you name a feeling, it gives you a little bit of space between yourself and what you're experiencing, right? And in that space, we can maneuver and we can make choices. We get back in the driver's seat. So instead of the feeling being in the driver's seat. So this whole slide is just kind of saying to you, as a caregiver, as a co-survivor, however I'm finding you today, can you begin to notice those feelings? Underneath your feeling, here's my second speed therapy thing. Underneath your feeling is a need. Right? So what does that mean? What are my needs? I don't know. Well, look, I just made a handy slide to show you a number. This is a short list, but these are universal needs. These are things that we all have and feel. So as a caregiver, you have needs too. And if you think about this as a caregiver, you're probably working pretty hard to understand the need of your loved one going through the experience. So this might give you an idea too. My gosh, the person that I love with cancer is really irritable today. I'm seeing that feeling. I wonder, I'm curious, filled with compassion. I'm curious. I wonder what they might be needing. Well, here's a list to kind of give you some kind of grounding about what some of those universal needs could be. Connection. We often have that need. That connection could show up in the form of, I just need to be appreciated, seen by other people, respected, stability, trust, consideration, honesty, play. Oh, goodness. Sometimes in the midst of this, it feels pretty heavy and hard, and we could be feeling that weight of sadness and that weight of fear and desperately needing play. And that sometimes shows up in the way people use humor. And that's a need that is so honest and so universal and real. Peace, just needing to be more ease and more kind of order in this. That would make me feel calmer, and then I would feel better. When I just said that would make me feel calmer. Think about this. If your needs are met, and if you think about your relationship as a caregiver, as a survivor, wherever I find you, if your needs are met, we feel calmer, right? We feel confident, we feel capable, we feel joy, we feel lighter. When your needs are not met, we feel that distress. So that's a signal to you. Something's under there. Autonomy, choice, freedom, spontaneity, and meaning. So much can come out of this as being, and then Danielle certainly will speak to that, or has already spoken to that, that sometimes in finding some degree of purpose, I say to my clients sometimes, we don't know we don't have a crystal ball. We can't understand where we're headed. And I can tell that this chapter that we're in right now, whether that's active treatment or whether that chapter is today until the next test, if we think of that as a frame of time, can we give some purpose to this period of time? So what would the purpose of this time be? Maybe the purpose is to rest and recharge. Maybe the purpose is to connect to others. Maybe the purpose of between learning about a diagnosis and starting treatment, maybe that purpose is educating oneself and gathering information. Maybe the purpose between today and the next doctor's appointment is to make a list of questions and to kind of, figure out what things would help to gain a little bit more order. So sometimes purpose helps us to define how we focus our time in this place. So I am willing in this amount of time that we've got together to bounce back to these slides, but I also am going to stop my share because I want to go back to all of us. And I'm looking that you've already begun to add into the chat. So thank you for doing that. Tell me where I find you, Danielle. Come on back and tell me, when I was saying all that, how that resonated and hit for you, because you're a caregiver. Go.
Yeah, all of it completely resonated with me. And I was just vigorously nodding the entire time you were talking because I felt everything that you were saying. And Ruth, David, and I all took a screenshot of the universal needs list because that is definitely something all of us can go back to, and not even just in this aspect of our life, in every single aspect, in our career, our interpersonal relationships, all of it.
And would you also say, that isn't it interesting too, if you kind of look at this cancer experience, that changes, right? That you have different, as a caregiver, there's a difference to that early stage of being initially diagnosed and getting into treatment. What do I do? What's my role here? Who am I in this? Who am I in this space? And then over time, do you recognize changes in your caregiver journey?
Oh, completely. I think in the beginning, it was a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty and just anxiety about everything that was to come and not knowing what to expect. And honestly, everything changed on a day-to-day basis, sometimes by an hourly basis. And
Yeah.
especially in a house of so many people, it was all very dependent on how everyone else was doing. And sometimes taking a step back as someone else took a little bit more space and trying to figure out how we could support our other fellow co-survivors, and also taking that space when I needed it and trying to figure out how best to support everyone in our little network.
That's really hard to do. You just said it
Mhm.
twice in two different ways. You said stepping back, and then you also said making space for yourself in two different ways. I think that's one of the hardest challenges is how you give yourself permission to do that. And I don't know how many young caregivers we have on this. It doesn't matter wherever you find yourself, whatever age, your own life is happening separate and alongside caregiving for someone.
Mhm.
And it's very hard to feel not only that sense of, hey, this has really interrupted my own trajectory, and to give yourself permission to go over and focus in those ways too. And if that resonates for some of you, pop that in the chat. Tell us how you've navigated that, what you've done, how you give yourself permission, how you make sense of that. But Danielle, I'm curious how that was for you.
Yeah, well, Ruth just popped into the chat that COVID complicated everything,
Oh,
which, yes, it definitely did, regardless of our own trajectories. As Julie just mentioned, COVID put a wrench in everything. And especially, like Ruth said, getting into appointments, the dynamics of how all of the cancer hospitals and cancer treatment centers were drastically affected. So that also affects your relationship with your provider too.
yeah.
And it influences the amount of support you're able to get at those appointments, let alone the amount of support you're able to get at home. Um,
I think, not being able, when you are all talking about COVID and not being able to get into appointments too, that being able to sit alongside your loved one in those appointments can also be so grounding, right?
mhm,
And I know that for survivors, that sometimes worry and anxiety is unanswered questions, right? When we really get down into it, worry can be like, I don't understand this, or I have a question that needs an answer. And for to sit and be able to be face to face with a doctor really helps you feel a sense of control. And I can imagine that that's been particularly difficult. Yeah. In the absence of how have you, or I'm looking at, I'm going to split the time. I'm going to go over here. Lucas says it resonates for sure. We're early in the cancer journey. So love hearing about the concept of giving myself permission to step back.
it is so important. I hear all the time that you can't take care of someone else if you're not taking care of yourself, or if you don't have the individual capacity to put in that extra effort. And it is so true with every aspect of the cancer journey. If you yourself aren't doing okay, I saw so many times myself, I really, really wanted to be there, but I just needed to take a step back and try to figure out how I could feel more stable and I could feel more grounded before I could give that part of myself.
At the risk of being a therapist with you right now, Danielle, sorry.
No, please do.
Um,
Any type of
I'm
therapy is
curious,
helpful.
I'm curious if you remember, or if you can kind of lean in to when you re-entered your caregiving role. So not when you gave your
Mhm.
permission and you left and you went and did, school or friends or whatever, but when you re-entered that, did you recognize a difference in your capacity? I'm kind of leading you, but like, I'm just kind of curious.
Definitely. I noticed a huge difference in my capacity. And even when, for example, I would vent to someone else and I would go to friends and tell them about what I was going through, um, every once in a while, I would realize that just going back to my mom and talking to my mom was so much more helpful because I could hear firsthand from her how she was doing. And a lot of the time, as a co survivor, it was me bottling up my thoughts and my emotions and constantly going round and round in my head, like, how is she doing? How is she doing? And it made me feel so much better just to go to her and be like, Mom, can you please tell me how you're doing? Because I'm worrying about it and I won't stop worrying until I know. Um,
Mm.
so even just talking to her directly about it.
And it sounds like maybe in talking to your friends, you found the ability to, sometimes when we talk through things, it's an organic way of loosening the knot, right?
Mhm,
And
definitely.
back to that first slide of not knowing the right thing to say or not having an adequate response. sometimes that worry of not understanding or not knowing is the not, right? And then
Mhm.
as you talk it out with either a group of separate friends or maybe a therapist or in a caregiver support group, it loosens that. It helps you to feel more confident in, oh, now I understand the words that match what I'm feeling inside. I have more confidence and more capacity to go back to my loved one and say, this is what's going on for me. And where are you? It's hard to do that without practice sometimes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that first slide. Do you guys remember that slide, the first one that we talked about? That of those common things I hear for caregivers, the not knowing the right thing to say, the worry about becoming too emotional. How was that for that one in particular? How was it? I don't know. Have any of you guys feared that? Has that been something? And if I've missed the mark, for the record, remember we're on speed therapy. We have 8 minutes, 8 minutes. So if I have not hit if Danielle and I have not hit something that you were hoping for in this quick time, put it out there so that we can give it some attention and some time. This matters. So this is our space. This is our time. So share with us what your experiences have been. But that feeling of being too emotional, did that ever come up for you? Was that one?
Yeah, trying to externally regulate and internally regulate my emotions is always really difficult for me.
Oh, you
Um,
used some really good therapy words. So, so internally and externally regulating, that feeling of like, is the feeling driving the bus? Am I able to kind of like get myself grounded and feel calm and therefore listen and communicate here? That slide I had about cultivating a habit of noticing, that effort and that work, I sometimes refer to in my office as going to the mental gym. That's the bicep curl of understanding what we're feeling. And if you can do that in like time that isn't so intense, then you have more capacity, you build the skill, you build the ability to sit in the middle of intense emotion and hold your center. So that's why I think like kind of being able to begin to notice what you're feeling. You don't have to put it on a billboard. You don't have to like say it out loud all the time, but just even to yourself, like, I am feeling really irritable. I am feeling really anxious. I am feeling really uncertain and worried. If you do
yeah,
that, that separates it a bit.
irritability is a big red flag for me. I always know if I'm feeling irritable that there's something else underneath that I'm ignoring most of the time. And if I lash out at my roommates or my friends, I know I need to take a step back. Okay, they didn't actually do something wrong. What is really bothering me in this moment? And
Yeah.
a lot of the time, it's fear, it's anxiety that's hiding behind the irritability that sometimes is a little bit easier to show and
And what
express.
else is hiding behind there, Danielle, and all is a need. I
Hmm.
need to slow this down, or I need more information, or I need space. I think another one that shows up a lot for people is impatience. Like I'm feeling incredibly impatient and
Hmm.
frustrated in this moment. What am I needing? I'm needing more clarity from you. I'm needing more connection. I'm needing maybe appreciation, respect. I think that when our feelings are sending us smoke signals that you're needing something. And it may take you some time to work that out and begin to recognize what that is. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. Promise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the chat, all those in the chat that showed up, thank you, are talking a lot about the way COVID has impacted this experience for you. I think another way that COVID and lockdown has impacted this is it's taken away our capacity to balance. Really has. That so much of people ask me as a therapist, so what's it like to be a therapist in a pandemic? Well, really people are walking in my office with so many of the same concerns that they had before all of this happened. But what we don't have is our natural and organic ways to find perspective, to get balanced. So you're not a cancer diagnosis, and you're also not fully and completely a caregiver. You're many things. And COVID has taken away the ability to be those other things, which sometimes leave us more grounded, more balanced. Yeah. So as our world begins to open up, which is also scary, I know in some ways it's relieving and exciting, but it's also sometimes scary, and it also brings up a lot of emotion for many. How you find those ways to begin to tiptoe back into balance and what you're needing. What else, Danielle? What else for you, or what else for others? We have 4 minutes left now. Athena, can I read out loud? That's sometimes kind of weird when I read out loud, but I'm going to read your comment here. Yes, totally. I feel like I need more. But how do you tell someone, like your mom, that I need more from her when she is tired and sad about her treatment? When you say more, I want more on that. So what more are you needing? Are you needing more clarity from her about how she's doing? Are you needing more information about what she needs from you? So my first question to that is, what is your more? And can you get more specific with me about that? What do you need? What is that? And if you want to unmute, welcome, you can join us.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would like more information, what the doctors are saying to her, and also more of how she's feeling. But she just says, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm like, no, I don't know that you are fine. But
And I don't know what your relationship with your mom is. And I'm gonna hope, Athena, that you are not alone, and that so many feel sometimes that sense of opaqueness. They need more transparency. I would encourage you, like I said in that person, to notice, how is that making you feel? So when you say you're fine, it's making me feel, um, I'm still feeling worried, or I'm still feeling kind of a little bit uncertain. And if you had more to share about what the doctors are saying as next steps, you might be more particular, more specific. Can you share with me more about what the doctors are saying? What's next? When you do these things, it makes me wonder if you're feeling fear, and is there a way that I can support? Would it be helpful if I, and then specific, would be helpful if I sit with you? Would it be helpful if I make dinner? If we can get the more specific, I think that often helps.
thank you.
Denise just wrote in, and then I think we're getting close on time, but Denise just wrote in, how do caregivers handle people asking to help when they feel uncomfortable accepting it? That is hard, right? Like, it's hard to accept support and accept help. I think as a caregiver, as anybody, when you think about when you're offering to help somebody, when you're offering to be of support, it often, if you're doing that, you want to be able to care, you want to give compassion and support to somebody, and you're seeking a way to do it. I think when people are asking to help or asking to kind of come in, they truly want to, right? You begin to know that. So when you do that, it's in some ways a way of loving and caring for and acknowledging the relationship of that other person. So I sometimes say that if you want to help another person, let them help you. Sometimes for natural caregivers, it can be really good about thinking about accepting help as a way of helping that other person feel involved.
And unfortunately, we are at the end of our time here. I know all of us could talk about this for hours and hours, and I really, really wish we could. This is actually the last workshop of the day. So after this, please be sure to visit the exhibit hall by clicking on the exhibits at the top of the Summit event site. I know there's a ton of stuff there. You can claim your virtual tote bag items at each booth and see which exhibitors are having live meet and greets this afternoon. And tonight at 9 o'clock, we have an amazing comedy show planned for all of you. I know this will be so much fun, and I'm very excited about it personally.
That sounds fun. Hey, and before we go, I know that there are breakout groups. There are natural ways to connect with each other before this conference comes to an end. Take this, whatever this has brought up for you, and find each other. Keep talking. Thank you.